Anyway, we're here tonight in our second series. We're graced here, as Professor Marconi said, Dr. Marconi said, with an alum, I think 2001, Sean Rosenberg. Sean is currently now, holds the title of Vice President of Mobile Marketing, Sales, and Business Development at BMG Label Group. I guess it's now Sony.
RCA Jive, which is part of Sony.
RCA, more. Okay, so
every week was something different.
well, you know, change is certainly the stock and trade right now in the entertainment business, particularly on the music side. So, according to the history I have here, that you joined the esteemed BMG Group as a coordinator in strategic marketing back in 2003, shortly after graduating here, and you're charged with the responsibility, this is a big sentence, so let me see if I can get this right, developing opportunities and partnerships for BMG artists in the mobile arena and oversee mobile marketing, advertising, sales, and promotion endeavors.
So the way that this kind of job description had come together is that really been overseeing everything that has to do with mobile. And while mobile really started in the music industry as this simple thing with master ringtone sales, we had to figure out in the past few years how to market our artists, not just our ringtones, but the web has become such an effective way of artists communicating out to their fans and creating community. If you think about the size, how many people in here have a mobile phone? Is it a stretch to say 100%? Do we know how many, what's the population of America? Anybody know? 300 million? Anybody have a guess of how many of those people go online every day on the regular wired, you know, use a PC, what web usage is in the USA? 80%? Lower. Yeah, it's closer to 60. You got about 175 to 200 million uniques a day on the web. Anybody have an idea of how many mobile phones there are in the USA? How many subscribers? That's going to get you a lot closer to 80–85%. There's about 285 million subscribers in the USA. So when you think about that kind of reach, if you think there's 6 billion people in the world, and there's now 4 billion handsets worldwide, and this is covering all types of countries. It's actually surprising how high the penetration is now in secondary countries as opposed to the big burgeoning markets. Of course, there's plenty of penetration across Europe and Japan, but India and China really coming up and about. So thinking about this in a way of connecting artists to people and to fans, you have to put in the marketing there. So how are we really marketing through mobile to do that? And then as far as the business development side of it, since this is still a very new business, we're figuring out the underlying business models of how do we create value here, whether that's through the marketing and gathering impressions, or if it's creating revenue and launching iPhone applications, for instance.
So Sean, it'd be fair to say, as recent as say 5 years ago, this area of the entertainment industry really didn't exist. And it was thought to, let's take this wonderful catalog and output we have and figure out a way of monetizing it. And maybe cellular technology presents that opportunity. And then somebody got the wise idea of like, well, not only can we monetize it, but maybe we can use this in a time where radio is not being so adventuresome, maybe we can use this platform to help expose and break new music. So you're, fair to say that there's somebody at every major label who does something synonymous to what you're doing. As recently as this morning, in this morning's business section of the New York Times, well, the funny thing is, in this area, every day there's a new company popping up, and I don't know how you keep track of it. So there's an article about a Denver-based startup called BuzzWire, but there was some statistic in there which I found fascinating. It's saying by the year 2012, people will be browsing the web more on their phones than on their PCs or laptops. Said that the number of people who surf the internet on phones has doubled since 2006, according to Nielsen Mobile, to 40 million people. And that's only 16% of people with cell phones will use them to go online, and those that do visit an average of maybe 6 sites a month versus close to 100 on their computers. That's a fascinating number of people, and here you are on the ground floor of something like this. So, I mean, how do you wake up every day, go to work, and not knowing who the players are even? Because every day the players change. I mean, you can take some things as benchmarks that, okay, you're going to have the main telecom companies, and yeah, Steve Jobs or whoever's running the company this week is going to be, iTunes is still going to be the big dog. But every day you wake up, there's another company there, offering some fantastic new product that you guys just have to be involved with.
Yeah, well, you've hit on a lot of things, and obviously there's a scarcity of resources for dealing with all these companies, and Buzzwire is an interesting one. They're taking a stab at becoming a real content portal all of a sudden, but they're kind of coming out of nowhere. And what's unclear to me with their business strategy right now is how they're actually going to attract a user base. They don't seem to have any affiliations with the major carriers or other major off-deck type of locations. So I don't know how they're, outside of their great B2B buzz that they're generating right now, I'm not sure how consumers are going to come in. But the big thing that you hit on there is convergence. And I think that we're seeing a lot of that right now, where there's less and less people with landlines at home. There's less and less people who are doing DSL now. So the big, the Comcasts out there, the Time Warners are really worried about that, and they're trying to invest more and more in the mobile side of things. So AT&T is in a good space because they got a big wireless company. Same thing with Verizon. They have Verizon Wireless. And yeah, we pointed out before that probably about 60% of people are online on the wired web, with the mobile web having about 15 to 20% of that install base actually using it now. But going back to thinking about why they're using it, my guess is that most folks in here, if you're using the wired web, anybody here check on like a sports score or the weather or news? I don't know many people right now who are really using it as the end-all be-all. It's kind of limiting having the small screen.
Well, that's what I wanted to talk to you about, because you participated back in the fall of 2007 on a panel that had a great title, "What's Wrong with Music on Cell Phones?" Forgive me, maybe I'm an old guy. I just don't find it an exciting process to pull out my phone and I'm going to listen to music on that. I mean, I grew up in an age where you went out and bought a stereo system, you got these great speakers, and you bought yourself a receiver. And now that's been, condensed down to whether it's a boombox or in most cases people listening to it on those little crummy speakers that you can buy for your computer. Now you're telling me, oh, don't worry about that, you'll be able to listen to it on your phone. Well, what kind of experience is that? I mean, explain to a musician, I'm sure most of you who play an instrument, so you spend all that time in the studio getting the sonics right, and you want to get that snare that snaps and whatever else it is, and then you're telling me I listen to it through this little tiny speaker and I'm going to find that a satisfying experience. I mean, you obviously had some comments at the time, and I just wondered how you feel about that today.
Well, it's tough because for now, it's very early on. We're maybe in the third or fourth inning of a really interesting baseball game here with mobile. So we're getting towards the later early stages, and some of the successes are coming out. But on the technology side, it's so early on, and it's hard to get that quality out there when it comes to the music products. And I think that there's some advantage to be had for that right now. If you're only able to get a low-res version out there, and it's easy to say distribute that for free through a handset or a mobile device, that could be a great way to try before you buy, and being able to upsell folks towards the higher resolution experience. As technology comes around, I mean, right now I can put a 16 megabyte chip in the side of my phone. So if I want to take up that 16 megabytes with high-res WAV files or AIF files or the highest quality, sure, I might not be able to put as much on that chip, but next year that chip's going to hold 32 megs, or gigs rather. The year after that, it's going to keep going up past 100. So the storage capacities and the networks are going to get faster. The things that are starting to work right now are a lot of these streaming internet services that are adapting applications for the phone. So here I'm referencing Shazam or Pandora or iMeme. So being able to access and sample something anywhere on the go.
So it's a sampling tool. It's like to get me hooked, so I want to go buy the end product, which in this case would probably be an MP3 or something more elaborate than that. Because I feel like I have a Wii, but you're telling me right now all you can have is the Pong game. It's like I mean, the technology is there to offer people fantastic audio quality, but we're saying, here, maybe you'll like this flavor here, and then we can upgrade you to that.
But in the grand scheme of things, now everybody's hyped up about 3G networks. That means the third generation of wireless networks. 1G was analog. That was when I got my first phone while I was still going here, and it was, a pretty giant thing. It only works on an analog network. Second generation was more of a hybrid. You could still go and anybody have like that dual antenna, so it's like sometimes you get roaming, you're going back to analog, but now you're starting to get onto the digital network. The second generation networks for phones were like dial-up, dial-up service, like a 56K modem. Now all of a sudden these 3G services, if you're actually in a good 3G area in ideal situations, it's much more like broadband. They're starting to experiment with fourth generation services, which are out all over the place, like in Japan and Europe. It's a lot easier to upgrade out there because when you look at the size of Japan and then you look at the size of America, if every state in America was responsible for their own network, it would upgrade a lot faster. But when you're talking about national coverage, it takes time to put these together. But long story short, 8 years ago, we were on a G1 service across the US. Now major markets have 3G service, and they're already rolling out fourth generation services, which are just as fast as a T1 connection in ideal circumstances. So when you're now able to connect your phone towards any device and use Bluetooth, for instance, to stream that into your home stereo, use a hard cord to connect it into larger speakers, as the technology progresses, so will the quality of the music, and it will become not just a sampling, and hopefully even a utility to folks, but an easier way to get that music and share it with people.
Okay, so let's change subjects here for a second to ringtones. So you talked about the time Hurricane Chris, where you sold 2 million ringtones. Now, I guess a ringtone now costs more than downloading a song.
Yeah.
So do you find, because you're still working in the creative environment there, you find some artists might be making music that is sonically very convertible to a ringtone, as opposed to, hey, is that going to sound good on the radio? Does that song have a hook? Are people now making songs in the back of their brain that, like, I want to make sure that's going to be a really good ringtone?
Yes and no. It's funny what will work and what won't work as a ringtone. Most of the big stuff, as I alluded to before, is these great hip hop hits. If it's rap, it's probably going to work, and a lot of it comes down to so why the difference in price? 99 cents for a whole song, and then all of a sudden you're getting less than 30 seconds of it for $2.99 sometimes. It's because ringtones aren't really music; they're personalization. The same way that you might personalize with merchandise from an artist, such as a t-shirt, the same way you might put rims on your car, black out the windows, it's a statement, it's an outward statement, so that when your phone rings, it's saying something about you and about the music that you listen to. But you're not going to sit around, or I don't know, maybe some people do, and listen to the same 20-second snippet over and over again. So with that personalization, that example of Hurricane Chris had this, a breakout hit called "Ay Baby." That was a lexicon. It was a bit of a saying for a while. So if you were in the know, that was something that had to be on your phone. So a lot of rap comes out that's based around some sort of saying, some sort of dance, some sort of, in the moment type of thing. So if you're able to hit on those pop trends, you're always able to sell a lot of merchandise, not necessarily a lot of music, and vice versa. Some of the biggest songs of the year aren't translating into ringtone sales or ringback sales because they just don't have that it factor that really resonates with people. So it can kind of go either way at times.
So, but still, I'm paying more than the song.
It's incredible, and I hope that it doesn't change for now, but of course it has to. And part of the reason why it got to that higher price point was because of the progression of ringtones. It started out with monophonic ringtones, a one-note melody, and they charged 50 cents for those. Then all of a sudden, these polyphonic ringers came out, and they started charging $1.50, $2 for them. So then the master ringtone came out, and they said, we've really hit it now. It's the real music. This has to be $2.50, $3. And so the market just kind of progressed that way because the carriers considered it a more premium content offering. In the meantime, iTunes was establishing this one-size-fits-all 99-cent price point. So, I was surprised. I had predicted that last year the ringtone the prices had to fall, and they still haven't dropped them down yet. So it's inevitable that it has to come down at some point.
There's a blogger known as Elliot Van Buskirk. He wrote an article earlier this year on 5 ways the cell phone will change how you listen to music. 5 ways. And I wondered if you might respond to some of these statements. That number 1 is David Letterman or something. Interactive radio on your phone can replace your MP3 player on some day.
They're 2 totally different listening habits. I mean, a radio is for discovery. Radio is about editorial. It's about pushing out new music to people. Better services like a Slacker help you tag the new songs that you're discovering and like for purchase later on. An MP3 player is about listening to what I want when I want, and it's on demand. It's what I own.
Number 2, you'll pay for music in subtle ways.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger initiatives that we're involved in right now is called Comes With Music. Has anybody heard about this? It's something that's going on with Nokia. Sony Ericsson has an iteration of it. But think about it this way: if you were to get a TV, isn't it just a big piece of junk that sits in the side of the room until you have it come with a signal? I mean, why would anybody buy a radio if it didn't come with radio? So if we really want to be able to get more music out there, we have to have hardware devices that actually come with music. So Come With Music, look, there's going to be a lot of DRM around it right now. It's very experimental, but the idea of it is that we can get massive penetration. Does anybody know how many iPods Steve Jobs has sold to date?
A lot.
160 million. Nokia ships more than 160 million handsets every quarter of the year. So if we can ship those handsets that come with music, and all of a sudden people, anybody here use Rhapsody or Napster or a subscription service? No, everybody just steals music here? Okay. No?
These are future executives. They're not going to
Okay.
do that.
I hope not. Well, I feel that many people don't use these. I'm a big fan of Rhapsody. I love going in there and being able to explore whatever I want whenever I want it, but it's a very hard service to turn people onto if they haven't been in the driver's seat before. So Comes With Music, it's giving everybody a chance to kind of try this model of using music. It's music as water. It's music as a utility. Having a monthly recurring fee in the background, the same way as you pay for electricity, the same way as you pay for your heating.
You used a phrase, and I didn't want to gloss over it here. How many of you are familiar with the phrase, music is water? You guys are, so 1, 2, 3, okay. Maybe you want to talk about that just for a second so people understand the reference point there.
Well,
that's an important thing.
Yeah, what that's about is really, right now we're in a wholesale model. At least the record labels are, right? We press these products, we put them out into stores, we say, here's the suggested retail price, and then the retailers are able to mark them up and make a profit off of it. There's more subscription services coming up. And a subscription service, in a way, a service is really different from a product, right? Isn't a live show a service? It's something that's really hard to replicate and package. Sure, you can have a version of that you go out and buy, but a service is really hard to replicate. So by turning music into a service, it becomes like any utility that you buy on a monthly basis. And if you have a water bill, if you have an electricity bill, if you have a heating bill, that's something that you expect to pay for, and it's in the background, and the bill gets higher or lower based on your consumption. So music like water is the same type of idea, where turning it into a really easy to consume service, that it becomes kind of in the back of the mind, and then you just pay your music bill along with your other bills each month, and you have access to all the music you could possibly want. Comes With Music is one of these types of attempts. Here's some hardware, and the first iterations are coming out through phones, and that's great because that's a touch point that hits so many people. But Comes With Music might be able to work through Bravia TVs as well. The latest round of TVs at CES this year are all coming out with these chips that enable them to go online and actually pull in streaming video on demand. There's no reason that iPods couldn't come with music as well. Any type of device should be able to come with music.
The third reason given for how cell phone will change the way you listen to music is the streaming services you customize for your phone will spread to other areas of your home. You kind of referenced that earlier, but
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I think that, you know, again, that's up to connectivity and the height of the networks. Look, 10 years from now, the phone is going to be so fast. I don't know if convergence is really going to take over and totally wipe out online browsing, but I think that it's going to be more common to access more things. There's been a lot of success in the last few months with the application store through iTunes. That has a lot of streaming type of applications. And if there's easier ways for consumers to plug and play with all their systems, look, I have a Mac at home that works really easy with all this stuff that I do. My fiance, she has a PC and nothing tends to work with it. So if you have something that's really easy and it's just going to plug and play for everybody, I think that there's a lot of truth to that.
number 4, you'll still use an MP3 player from time to time, but it will have cell phone-like features.
Well, I mean, I guess that depends on if you bought an iPhone or if you bought a BlackBerry as your smartphone, where what's the primary feature of it? You know, sometimes consider the phones, there's so much packed into them, they're kind of almost a Swiss Army knife of nothingness. You know, there's so many multi-functions that don't really mean anything to anybody. Outside of a contact book, what do you really need on a phone? Well, it'd be nice to have it as a music player, and you know, we had a joke that a couple years ago, if you bought one of those Razr phones from Motorola and an iPod Nano, you could actually glue them together and be thinner than one of those rocker phones that Nokia was coming, or Motorola was coming out with at the time. You know, and look, the iPhone is a really great rendition of that. I happen to prefer the BlackBerry because I use it, my primary functions are with email and contacts and texting, and I like to have a full keypad, something that's tactile. So I throw a 16 gigabyte chip in the side. I have my MP3 player inside my phone. I use Bluetooth headphones and stream it throughout the house. But I think that, yeah, that's another form of convergence where that's true, but I think that it's going to be about the immediate purchase and download into the memory of the device, which is removable and shareable.
Last point he makes is that music blogs will program internet radio stations. Music blogs as dictators of taste on the internet.
Maybe somebody has to do some sort of editorial. There's so much music out there right now; it's overwhelming. I mean, if an A&R person is going in and just saying, "Oh, I discover new bands at MySpace," there's endless possibilities, and it's a full-time job. So if somebody's able to make a livelihood out of a blog that's, you know, sustaining them, and they have the time and the taste and the right ears that they're actually turning people onto good music, and they form a following. I mean, isn't that essentially what Blender and Rolling Stone and Fader have been doing for years and years and years? You just go and you got to read it somewhere first. You have to be referred from somebody. So, but that's really about trust with the consumers. And if you build a loyal fan base that really likes what you're doing, they're going to go and follow that wherever. It's easier on a blog or a mobile blog because it's one click and you're listening to the music immediately that's being talked about, but there always has to be editorial out there.
Okay, thank you. Anybody out there have a Virgin mobile phone? Anybody use Virgin Mobile? No. Okay. Well, Sean, I'm sure you're hip to what's going on, but apparently Virgin Mobile is going to, the US version, is going to be sponsoring the Britney Spears Circus Tour.
It's a fresh headache we had in the last couple of weeks.
So you'll be able to catch the Pussycat Dolls and Britney Spears in concert, sponsored by Virgin Mobile. So tell me about that. Is that just like any soda, you know, or beer sponsoring a tour?
Right now, yes, it is, because what happened with that particular deal, and you know, this is you know, somewhat confidential, but we can trust each other, right? Is that this was a deal that was struck between management and a brand. So Virgin Mobile came in, and they've been going out. They worked with management, came back to the label afterward, and said, "Oh, we got this deal done." Labels traditionally, we don't share in touring. So look, it's great that they got somebody to write a check for tour support, so now we don't have to underwrite that tour. But there's no play, there's no synergy that was brought in by all the parties that have a stake in Britney Spears. So while they're able to get, you know, money and an imaging fee and all this stuff, and it's going to help them on the tour, help them promote the tour, that's great. We're very happy about that. The tour is going to help sell albums. It's, you know, it all works out. But since the label was never brought into that deal to begin with, we couldn't talk about other things that we own the rights to, like exclusive music. And giving Virgin Mobile right now is asking us, oh, we want the rights to put all of Britney Spears' music and videos on virginmobile.com because that'll mean that people will come there and watch that and buy phones and do great things. And we said, you want to license it from us? We usually get a license for our music. Why are we going to give it to you? Oh, because we're writing Britney Spears and her manager a check. I said, well, you didn't write me a check. So, you know, that's one of the tough things nowadays. Managers and artists are becoming more and more self-sufficient, and that's fine, but nobody has full ownership over everything with the artist. If Britney Spears was in a position where she owned her own masters, owned her own publishing, I think that there's a lot of other great things that could happen through this type of deal that would really be able to benefit everybody. You know, but in this particular case, I don't see that as any different from another you know, thing. I mean, Virgin Mobile's still hiring a company called Vibes Media to actually do the text-to-screen promotions that will be in the venue. So, look, if Pepsi came in and did this, it's very plug and play. There's nothing specifically mobile about what they did.
And I guess you would say the same thing that when the Grammys were held last week, that T-Mobile had partnered with them and they became the official sponsor to promote their Sidekick.
Yeah, well, I mean, look at it this way. The four major carriers, Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, and T-Mobile, consistently in the top 5 advertisers in the U.S. quarter after quarter. They got lots of money to spend. If they get one subscriber, you sign a 2-year contract, that's worth about $2,400 to them. So their cost per acquisition, they spend a lot of money out there, but Verizon right now, out of these 280 million subscribers in the USA, has about 80 million of them. So that's a lot of monthly recurring revenue coming in. And they just want to have the appearance of being a really great brand out there so that they'll have, they want to reduce churn. They don't want people to go away. They want people to think, we want young people to come in who are going to have cell phones for years and years and years to come, and we have to have great content and great offers for them. Whether that's across sports, entertainment, music, we want people to stay. The same way that Best Buy has always used the music industry's product to get people in the door. Why do they discount a product the first week to $9.99? So they can get somebody in there to fill up their shopping cart with a washer and dryer, a computer, and whatever else is in the store. They make a little bit of money off it, but basically it's a loss leader out there. So Verizon and all the other carriers are trying to do the same thing right now. They're trying to brand, get in there with the youth audience, and get lifelong cell phone subscribers that are worth tens of thousands of dollars.
Well, while we're talking about sponsorship type things, I'm not sure I understand, what is Cricket Communications? They seem to be like a cell phone
Regional
provider.
carrier.
They're a regional carrier, yet they're offering some sort of special promotion right now, offering a free song you can download on your phone from Soulja Boy.
Yep.
So they're just a regional carrier, and this is a promotion they're rolling out?
Yeah, so you know, like I mentioned, the USA, a very, very large country. So maybe you guys have come across, there's been a lot of advertisements in the tri-state area recently about Metro PCS, $40 plans come in. They started out down in Baltimore and DC. They did a good business, I think, out in Ohio as well. But they had a very small network that they were able to constantly upgrade and have a few people on there that they could provide a really great service to. So out in, if you look at the maps, if you go into any you know, major carrier, they'll have the map of their coverage. You'll see there's still plenty of open spots across the country where they don't have 3G service or their edge service hasn't gotten there just yet. So that's where these regionals still have something going on. Alltel was recently a kind of second tier, almost regional carrier, and they got bought out by Verizon because they were getting too big. So these regionals, they don't have enough clout to sit down with each individual record label and, you know, do deals around content. So they actually have a middleman in the chain, an aggregator. So we have deals with aggregators. This particular one's called Zed, that feeds carriers like Cricket and US Cellular and Metro PCS. So Zed's able to bring in opportunities sometime where these carriers are trying to totally differentiate themselves. Now, Soulja Boy has some interesting ideas about how he should get his music out there, and he pushes for a lot of free things. But I don't know whether or not Universal would have waived their rights and the publisher would have waived their rights over giving that out for free, or if again, to differentiate themselves, Cricket actually might have paid a wholesale value so that it's free to consumer, but that the label and the publisher still got their payment over that many downloads. So, it's an interesting strategy. I don't know what the value is in giving away a Soulja Boy ringtone, considering that traditionally he's one of the hottest ringtone artists out there. So I don't know how giving away something makes them buy more of it.
I guess it's because the song is called "Kiss Me Through the Phone." It's his new single.
Yeah, it's already #1 on the ringtone chart. It's doing really well.
And that's only through one regional carrier.
Yeah, and everywhere else he's selling it. So I mean, the amount of money that he would have made through Cricket anyway is not going to be that significant. And if they feel that it's a good marketing push and they're getting a lot of marketing and awareness in that area, then maybe it's worthwhile for them. But every label kind of treats these opportunities a little bit differently.
You were quoted in Billboard in December of last year as saying, it's going to be a while before there's a standard for how to bring an artist out to all mobile devices. This is one way we're going to get in front of an interesting market. It's a technological challenge, and how do we best optimize the most amount of handsets? And I just wondered how you feel about that today. I mean, a couple of months later, as things change so rapidly.
Yeah, it's really tough out there. I think that might have been in reference to that Dido campaign that we were doing.
Yes.
Where, what we did was we made knowing Dido's demographic, we felt that it overlapped with iPhone users. So what we did was we made a version of her website that was optimized for the iPhone. So when you look at a website through your mobile phone, you have a lot less space to play with, and you want certain things to pop up to the top, other things not to come in, not too many graphics, not too heavy, load quickly, et cetera, et cetera. So we made a special site for iPhone and did a mobile advertising campaign where we bought media of females, what was it, like 16 to 34 on iPhones. So across networks like TMZ, across MySpace, we were placing advertisements, but only on iPhone devices using device detection. So we were able to serve them up relevant information about Dido coming back, create awareness, and send them through to a site that didn't come up all broken with, oh, you don't have Flash Player, you don't have Macromedia here. So it cost us a little bit of money to get that one site working for that one device. And look, that was fine for Dido because we felt that really went to her fans. But if you're really creating a mobile presence for an artist, it's so difficult right now. If you're designing a website, you want to make sure it works on Mac, on PC, on Internet Explorer, on Firefox, a handful of browsers and everything, and they're pretty standard. You have hundreds of different devices worldwide that can access a mobile website. So you have to actually design different sites or different optimizations of the site for every single one out there.
So if I'm an artist and I say, Sean, I want a ringtone and I want it, available for any service, whether it's, Sprint, AT&T, Verizon, whatever here in North America, do I have to go make separate deals with each of the carriers? Or is there one place I can make an agnostic version that everyone can enjoy?
Well, if on the sales side, the majority of sales are still coming through the major carriers, so you're lucky that you're signed to Sony because we have the best distribution network for mobile.
But that still means I can't go to one site and say, okay, I have a Verizon phone, it's an LG, push a button and it'll download for me.
Yes, we always make sure we have other off-deck partners. So on-deck means that you're on the carrier, like Verizon VCast, T-Mobile T-Zones, AT&T, that you go and you buy and you're on the carrier's deck. Off-deck is anything else, from an actual website online to websites on the phone that you might be able to go to. So you have Dada and Thumbplay, Two-Way. There's a lot of different off-deck operators. So we always make sure to have a direct-to-consumer option, so that if somebody comes to kellyclarksonofficial.com, here's the one button that somebody can click on to go through the process and buy that tone offline, off deck. But otherwise, we're working with the sales team to make sure that if they do normally go into AT&T's Media Mall, that we're featured and have prominent merchandising and placement within the deck.
But can I download from the iTunes store a ringtone?
From the iTunes store, if you have an iPhone, you can buy the rights to customize your own ringtone.
But only for an iPhone?
Only for an iPhone.
Okay. Now
we make it really easy for everybody.
Right, yeah, it's confusing. Yet now I'm reading that the ringtone market, as we all talk about how it's this great revenue generator, may have peaked.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And part
So
of that
this
is with
this
the pricing.
brand new. It's changing. This company's developing every day. Now you're telling me that this thing has maybe sought its level and has gone as far as it's going to go for the time being.
Yeah, I think that master tones have definitely plateaued for now. And look, it plateaued at a good size. We're about, the U.S. is set to make $1 billion a year right now and go up incrementally for mobile music. And the majority of that is master tones. $1 billion. Anybody know the size of the music market in the U.S.? No?
Bueller?
Anybody?
Bueller?
10 billion? That ring a bell? So 10% of the music market in the US right now is made up by ringtones. So not a bad place to peak at. Growth from there, though, is going to be the success of full tracks, full videos, streaming services, and revenues off of that. So look, as long as mastertones don't decline much more, mobile overall as a music category is going to continue to go up. But yeah, it's harder to make money at ringtones, and I think, again, the price has to come down, and hopefully that's going to have enough quantity uptake so that we still maintain the market size. But we'll see what happens. I think it's going to be about additional formats.
Just a sidebar to this, nothing that you would know anything about, I'm sure, but video chat services, adult content. No surprise, as adult content on the internet is always, whenever there's a new technology, you can count on adult content
Yes.
being in the vanguard. And okay, so now it's apparently going to be one of the largest contributors is adult content on the video side of things. Of course, your company would know nothing about that, but
Of course not.
just as a sidebar, that wherever there's opportunity, you can count on that area of the business to be contributing to it.
Yeah.
So I know you put together a little couple of slides or something, and I thought maybe might be the time to here at this point to maybe show some of them.
Yeah, sure.
And walk us through the distribution and the global picture and everything.
Yeah, well, as you had mentioned a little bit earlier, there's new services popping up every day. And at a record label, we have a lot of capabilities in-house that we're almost fighting with our artists and our managers for them to use ours over these new companies that are popping up and pitching them. So the way that we deal with this at RCA Jive is we have this tight little feature deck as a talking point so that we can go in and pitch managers as far as us being a technology company as well. I mentioned a little bit before, look, record labels are wholesalers of products, but now all of a sudden we're direct-to-consumer companies and we build websites and have technology and deals with all these great companies. So this is a presentation that I use with artists and managers to talk about our basic capabilities. And this kind of fractals off into lots of different conversations, like the Virgin Helio sponsorship of Britney Spears and where's the money for us type of things. But these are kind of the basic points of capabilities of Sony right now. All right. So products. That's what labels do, right? We put out products. We productize music. So right now, these are the big mobile categories for those products. The basic ones on the right-hand side, singles. Everybody loves singles. So digital audio singles, the same as at iTunes, even though singles, it's interesting, in the mobile space, cost a little bit more, of course. These are super premium. You had master tones, which we were charging you $2.99 for, so how can't we figure out a way to charge you more for the full track? So we came up with this thing that's called dual delivery. When you buy a single from Sprint, you get an immediate copy of that to your phone. You also get a second copy that's waiting for you in a digital locker so that you can sideload that to any device and have it on your computer. If you're getting 2 copies of the song, that means we have to pay twice as much publishing and we have to take in twice as much revenue. So $2.50 to $2, Verizon and Sprint are selling all these songs out there. Those are the basic full track services. AT&T has brought on Napster Mobile to do full track service, and they're trying to do a monthly recurring fee where it would be $3.99 a month for 3 tracks, I believe. Music video downloads. This is really just on Helio, which is now part of Virgin, as well as Vcast Music. These are going to cost you about $4 on the phone to have a little mini version of the video that you can play anytime you want. People buy these. It's amazing. I mean, I'm amazed by it every day when we see the reports that come in on them. And music video streaming. There's a couple of companies out there, GoTV and MobiTV, who actually have made pretty significant networks. Moby TV just published something saying that they claim to have about 6 million subscribers across their linear TV channels. So you just tune into it as if it's TV, and we have music videos licensed out to them. Personalization, as I was mentioning before, these are snippets of music. So master ringtones, ringback tones. Everybody know what a ringback is? So video tones, which is a snippet of the video as a ringer, so people watch their phone instead of picking it up. Artist ancillaries, these were fun to do for a while, but as more P2P services have come out and as more people customize their own devices, they've kind of fallen down. The advent of the camera phone killed the wallpaper market. Why am I going to buy a wallpaper when I take a picture of my dog and put that as my background? But we do have merchandising rights for certain images. Voice tones, these were always fun. We'd go into the studio and sit with the artists and have them come up with stupid things to say for ringtones and ringbacks and such. Really great for exclusive content. The carriers used to love that. Voicemail greetings. This is kind of a newer product where this would be the ultimate mobilized person would have a ringback tone and then a personalized voice greeting before you leave that voicemail. Now getting into some more interesting things with the applications here. We actually launched the first artist-branded applications back in October. We did one for Pink, which was free to user, and we did another one for David Cook, where we took. Anybody play with iPhone applications yet or seen them? I know there's plenty of advertising, right? So I found the guy who made the Lighter application, and David Cook's single was called Light On. So we threw his song in there and sold it for $1.99 as a interactive single at the time. So apps is really interesting. There's about 10 million iPhones that have been sold so far in the US, kind of a small chunk of those 280 million phones in the US, but these users have unlimited data plans, very high affluent people, and they're downloading apps like crazy. There's like 10,000 apps or something like that available right now. I think they've already done 500 million downloads of apps. A lot of them are free, some of them are premium. So everybody's trying to figure out what to do in this space right now. Whoever figures out how to do this for music is going to make a lot of money. So if you know somebody who programs Mac and Cocoa, get together with them with your big idea, and anybody can launch something there. Applications are not just on iPhone, though. They're the first ones to figure it out, of course, with Steve Jobs. But everybody here familiar with the G1 phone, the Google phone that came out on T-Mobile? They have an application store. Now BlackBerry's finally getting their act together, and they have a lot of applications out there, but they've never made an application store. Motorola has announced plans for it. Nokia has announced plans for it. So everybody's getting on the bandwagon for applications. Games are just applications as well, except you play with them. Some of the most successful apps on the iPhone happen to be interactive games. These could be really expensive to make, though. I mean, you're talking about a software developer who's going to be. You have a question over there?
Yeah. With all this digital, different stuff that's going on, is it? I mean, 'cause there's so much of it. Is it just going to turn into clutter, like digital clutter? Like I have a bunch of crap in my basement that I never touch and I never look at. And take away from the significance of what you're trying to sell?
Absolutely, absolutely. It's very hard, and that's a really good point, because we put out these applications for major artists like Pink and David Cook, and it was hard for us to get what we felt was our fair share of promotion within the iTunes application store. So much competition out there. You look at the music category, we're up against pianos and flutes and remix machines and stuff that have nothing to do with artists. We're up against playlist applications and radio and Pandora. So it's really hard to come up with a really great app that's beyond the artist, beyond their music, and something that a user really wants to engage in a lot, and to get them there. Because now, how am I going to tell all of an artist's fans that if you have an iPhone, you can get this really cool thing, and this is how you do it? How do you spend on your marketing and your advertising to get them in there? So we have so many different messages we're trying to manage to artists, to a large artist fan base, and that really comes into customer relationship management and CRM, and how you're setting up. How do you talk to your fans? What are you talking to them about, and when? And layering a marketing plan so that you have windows in there to give everything that you're doing a spotlight. Because if you don't tell people it's there, it's not just going to organically be found. Not everything is viral just because it's put out and it has the sharing tools. So that's kind of what we're doing on the product side. So these are mobile products. Go to the next page. Distribution. That's why everybody loves the major labels. We have distribution, and as I mentioned before, we have the best. Actually, within Sony, the Orchard, Iota, a lot of independent labels, Koch, they come to us and do P&D deals just around our distribution for online and especially for mobile. We have direct deals with most of the carriers. If not, we're in bed with aggregators so that we can, all the products you saw on the previous page, we can get them out there, we can get them promoted. Verizon barely picks up the phone for all the major labels out there. So if you don't have good distribution and good relationships, you're never going to get featured. You can see the way that the carriers spread on the sales. It's funny. Verizon's the biggest carrier, and they've been doing a lot of good work as far as promoting their content business. AT&T is the second biggest carrier, Sprint's the third, but yet on this chart, T-Mobile's the second biggest in revenues for us. They're way behind the other three when it comes to the amount of users, but they appeal to a much younger demographic. They price their content a lot cheaper, and they have a much better merchandising strategy on their deck. So when people go there, they aren't as confused as when they go onto AT&T and see a million things. They concentrate on a few pieces of content and sell a lot of it. So the tier 2 channels are Music Box, which is actually Sony, a product that we have out there. Zed, who I mentioned before, they power a lot of these secondary tier people. MVNOs, that's mobile virtual network operators. That includes Virgin Mobile, that includes Boost. So an MVNO is somebody who can't afford their own spectrum and their own network. So they go to somebody like Sprint or T-Mobile and say, can I rent or lease some of your network and buy minutes from you at a wholesale rate really cheap and then resell it and package it within my own service. And then you have off-deck, which is, I mentioned before, Thumbplay, Dada, Two-Way, Jamster, a lot of these guys, and they do this monthly recurring fee where $9.99 a month, you can get 10 ringtones and MP3s and all this great stuff. They're in the same business as the carriers. They're in the customer acquisition business. They want to get as many people as they can and charge them $10 a month. And then they're in the churn reduction business. They want to see as few of those people churn away from their services. So they're trying, anybody here familiar with a breakage model in business like this? So if they're getting $9.99 a month per customer, if that customer maxes out on all of those credits, they don't make any money because they have to pay back the content owners. So they want a certain amount of breakage to occur where people are not redeeming 100% of the content that they're allotted each month. So they encourage them, and it's a hard game to play. They average out having consumers for about 3 to 4 months before they're like, I'm getting charged too much, and this is ridiculous. So they're trying to figure out how they can acquire a customer, $10 a month, going to be worth about $30, $40 to them, and get them to consume the least amount of content while feeling that they have a really great service there. So that's the US distribution partners. I'm sorry, I don't know if you have global distribution. Again, this is Sony capabilities. So we outline some of the top carriers in each of these territories. Basically, if there's a legitimate place to be selling mobile products, we're there, we're in that market. Europe, it's kind of interesting. While the carriers definitely do a good business, there off-deck, like the Jamsters and the Thumbplays, are actually much more successful than the carriers in selling content. And a lot of their content sales happen through commercials. And everybody understands short codes and keywords. Text this keyword to this short code and you can get this, right? These TV commercials that are out there. That's like all sales in Europe. Asia, mobile is so much bigger than online. It's totally flipped from what it is in the USA. Everybody has a mobile device. Everybody's using it as their contact point. The CTIA, which is kind of like the RIAA, but for the wireless world. Whenever I go to there, they have 2 conferences a year. I always make sure to go to NTT Docomo, which is the big Japanese carrier. And their booth, they have these phones that are so wildly advanced. You can scan these and use them as your credit card. Since it's a credit card, that's really unsafe if you were to lose your phone. So they have actually, you look in it with your eye to unlock the phone and it does a retinal scan. I mean, it is so like they're in the future right now. They use it in their turnstiles for the subway. It's wild. So, getting back to can our services in the US get to that technology point? We'll get there eventually, but Japan is way ahead of us. It's incredible. Latin America, there's a lot of up usage, and yeah, Australia's a pretty big market too. Go to the next slide. So direct to consumer. I mentioned this a couple times. Record labels are really used to being a wholesale business. Now all of a sudden we're reaching out directly, we're being the retailer. So we're figuring out different ways to connect and market through our properties, whether it's a web property or a mobile property, and hopefully close sales through that. The marketing is all great and good, and look, you have to market stuff and make an awareness factor out there and create impressions, otherwise nobody knows to buy anything. But if you can't close the sale, you can't have a business. So we've partnered with a service called Moses, M-O-Z-E-S, and what they do is they have the technology to power text messaging and IVR. IVR is interactive voice response. When you try and call your bank or you call on a credit card and you have that number on the back and it says push 1 for this, push 2 for that, that's IVR. I'm sure everybody's experienced that firsthand. We actually set up hotlines for our artists that are these IVR lines. So we get them a 10-digit phone number, we put them out in the world, their fans call in and opt in to get more messages from the artist. So when they're out on tour, they just pick up their phone, leave a message, and all of a sudden they're blogging. They're sending out a voice blog everywhere. Through that, we're sending people updates about what's happening and getting them involved in the marketing campaigns, syndicating viral content, and giving them purchase opportunities. On the right side of the screen, we have interactive concerts. So that's another thing that Moses helps us power. Text Usher to 66937 for your chance to get backstage. That's an instant type of gratification that we can do. One of the great things about direct-to-consumer when it comes to mobile is that mobile can go across any type of media. Everybody's seen a TV commercial that has a short word or a short code to a keyword. Everybody's seen a print ad that has that type of thing. You can do this online. You can do it within mobile. Any type of way that you want to put advertising out there, you can instantly add interactivity by putting a call to action on there that's mobile focused. That's either going to send them someplace else or give them something that they can action upon right now, whether that's for purchase, entry into something, or follow-up messaging. So those are the basic kind of things that we do there, and replying, polling.
Moses?
Yeah.
So I was just reading this press release about Moses and a service Dada.
Yep.
So can you explain what, I'm confused what is Dada?
Oh, so am I. They're a joint venture with Sony. So they're one of these clubs out there charging people $9.99 a month for ringtones and MP3s online. So Sony Entertainment formed a joint venture with this company because we feel that in that breakage model I was explaining, we don't see enough of the breakage. You're using all of our content and you're keeping all this money on the side. We want some of it. So we created this joint venture so that we could share in that breakage, and by actually participating in this, make it a valuable club that's going to be long-term, that even if there's less breakage or no breakage, that we're still seeing value in this at the end of the day. Music like water, a recurring monthly charge. Now, it's hard to create a portal out of scratch. They're not exactly Rolling Stone with their editorial staff. They're not a Pitchfork Media out there. But Dada and us have partnered. So one of the things in this particular press release was that I hooked them up with Moses, our mobile messaging partner, so that now when we're adding a call to action, you can buy something from Dada through our mobile messaging. So the way the regulation works in this whole short code world and with text messaging is that you need to do a lot of technical integration, form these APIs and all this complex BS stuff that you have to do to get stuff to work. But at the end of the day, we were really happy because now when somebody calls into our artist hotline or we send out a text message, we're able to sell them content on Dada. Right now that's limited to ringtones, but as they get the rights to sell full-length MP3s over the air to the phone, we hope to expand there as well. I think that does it for this slide. So web tools. Again, mobile is something that lets you experiment across any media, and one of the best places for that, of course, is the web. And with our online teams, we do a lot of integrated work. So mobile storefronts, that's what you were asking about before. These are what we put up to make sure that people can buy David Cook's ringtones in 3 easy steps. Any carrier will work with that. And then we have this marketing widget, which is something we use with Moses. So when fans are, you can see Brittany is taking calls now, call the B line at this number, you call up, you'll get Brittany, anybody can try it out. I encourage you to try it. You don't have to sign up, but get the first-hand experience. It's the only way to figure out what's really going on. as fans call up the line, they leave voice messages. So these voice messages we repost on these widgets. All of a sudden we're creating community. We have people replying to each other, and there's something else. There's another reason to keep checking in or going back to the website. So those are the basic web tools we have, and I think I just have one more slide here. Mobile blogging. I mentioned this a little bit with the IVR that for voice blogs. Everybody here come across Twitter? All right. So that's microblogging, right? 140 characters or less. You can do that from your IM client. You can do it from your computer. You can do it by logging into Twitter, or you can do it from your phone. Imogen Heap right now, one of our artists, is really, really into Twitter, and she has like 17,000 followers and did this thing where she's told people, oh, here's an early song that I'm working on, why don't you remix it and send it back? So she had hundreds of entries back, and now she might put it on her album or do something fun with it for the fans. Video blogging, this is another interesting thing. All these phones out in the world, everybody's capturing video on their pictures. You can send a text message with it. So we recently hooked up with a service called Kite, K-Y-T-E. What they do is they created software that instantly syndicates that content to mobile widgets, to web widgets, to social networks, so that when our artists are out on the road, they can make these little mini movies or pictures and communicate with the fans from anywhere at any time instantaneously. So that really kind of does it for the pitch deck. So that's what we're working with on artists, and using a lot of these things as starting points to kind of jump off when we're creating a marketing campaign.
Anyone else have any questions?
I was going to ask you, how are managers dealing with this, and how do you interact with managers now? Because, I mean, Terry McBride's amazing, of course, but so many aren't, and so clueless. How are they starting to adapt to some of these things you've been talking about?
It depends. It depends on what the artist's focus is. Look, I deal with Terry in a very different way on Avril than I would with Sarah McLachlan, But
Any artist who has any value or an asset that's worth something, I would assume at that point they have a manager who's savvy enough and smart enough. And it's the smaller artists that don't have the savvy managers that really don't have a way of monetizing it because they're still at that level.
yeah,
What was the old adage? If once an artist's record goes gold, their IQ doubles, and then it quadruples when they have a platinum record. And I would hope that, follows with their management becomes educated.
yeah. I mean, it's tough to say. A lot of artists, after they've had a string of success, will usually upgrade management and go to one of the larger companies, or their manager will sign with one of the larger companies and represent them and work on some other stuff. But it's usually that original manager that really has a personal relationship with the artist or with the group and is able to talk about certain things with them. It depends, though. The managers are all over the place, and everybody kind of has their own shtick about what works for their artists and what they like to do.
Well, let's give Sean here